Hey guys, it's Angela, and tipping culture in our country is so out of control that this 22-year-old did the unthinkable when she received a $2 tip. So it's a normal day in Kissimmee, Florida, where a pregnant woman and her boyfriend decide to go to a motel with their 5-year-old child to celebrate a birthday and order some pizza. That is when Brianna showed up at their motel, and their order came to around $33. But all that this pregnant lady had was a $50 bill. So she was going through her wallet in front of Brianna and noticed that she only had $2. So Brianna, instead of going to a bank and getting some change for this woman, she decides to finish her shift that ended at 10, and then she shows up back at the motel at 10:20 with a man. They are dressed in black, wearing masks, and they force their way into the motel. The man forces the boyfriend into the bathroom while Brianna goes through this pregnant lady's wallet, and she breaks the Nintendo of their child and does some really heinous things that I can't even describe because I would get demonetized. So maybe you guys can say what she did in the comments. Regardless, it is absolutely insane. Now, some people think that it wasn't just because of the $2 tip, but she saw her as an easy target and saw her as somebody who had cash. Regardless, this woman needs serious punishment for what she did. Now, that insane breaking news has brought up a really important topic of discussion about tipping culture. Now, a lot of people are frustrated because there's so many other countries where tipping is not a requirement. And even though they say that tipping is voluntary in the US, it basically has become a requirement. You can see that there are so many other countries like Mexico, Belize that don't tip, and Canada tips 10% to drivers and 15 to 20 for restaurants, and in the US it's up to 25% as well. So they are expecting a lot from tips, and people are wondering, why don't the companies pay them their wages? So there are some states that don't require people to be paid more than the federal fair labor standards of $2.13. So those are some places like Georgia, India, Kansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Nebraska. However, in many other states, like where I live, they're getting paid a lot more than $2.13 per hour. So here you can see that people like waitresses in Colorado make $11.40, whereas the minimum wage in our state is $14.42. So, I mean, they're only getting paid like $3 less than what minimum wage is. And by the way, in Colorado, that's going to be going up to $14.81. And so it's just a few more bucks, but yet they expect you to pay a whole lot more than that. Now, I find this very interesting. Now, I myself have worked as a waitress for quite some time, so I understand that you can make some pretty good money. And as I was working as a waitress, there were so many people there who were like, I have been at this restaurant for 20 years. And so a lot of people make entire careers about it. I mean, just think about it. If you can get 4 to 5 tables per hour, you could be making some good money. Okay, so as you can see here, it says a server typically manages around 4 to 5 tables at an hour at a time, which means they might serve several tables within an hour. So let's assume that they serve 3 tables in an hour. And in a recent study, this is crazy. It has gotten so expensive to even go eat out that like going to McDonald's basically now costs what it used to cost to go to a restaurant. But here it says that just for a couple to go out to a restaurant in Colorado, the cost of that is going to be around $112. So imagine being a waitress or waiter and being able to get 20% of that 3 to 4 times per hour. So if you were to get 20% of $112, that is going to be a whopping $22.4. That's just from one table. So let's say you were able to get 3 tables done in that hour. You would be making $67 just from tips. Also, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next year and in the next 4 years, because Donald Trump says that he is going to put no taxes on tips. And that is amazing because I remember having all of the credit card tips would get taxed, but if it was in cash, I was really happy because I got to take it home that day. I don't know if that's completely legal right now, but that's just the way that it was. And so for a waitress, their earnings come 60% from tips. And in the US as a whole, they can be making around $36,000 per year plus tips. And most of that is the tips. Now, I always found this super interesting as well, that some girls, they work at nightclubs and sometimes they can make $1,000 per night in tips because of how much money some people spend on bottle service. I mean, so if you're a fast waitress and you can get a lot of tables, you can be making $70 per hour just in tips. And people are getting kind of annoyed of how much money they're making for the job, even though I understand that waiters and it's a lot of work because you're managing so many different things all at once. You got the drinks, you have to be taking orders and making sure people have their ranch and that they're satisfied, and they also got the checks. So it is a lot. However, it's also become, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, it's very interesting because somebody making $25 the hour, which could be even less than what a lot of waitresses are making, that is giving them about $52,000 per year. And of course, it also depends on how much they work, but that is pretty similar to how much firefighters are making. And sometimes as a waitress, you feel like you're always putting out fires, but I mean, these people they're literally putting out fires. So I think that that is one of the big reasons why people are so annoyed about tipping culture in the US. Here we have a person and several other people showing their experiences of how insane tipping culture in America has gotten.
Check it out, guys. This is how we pay here in America. You can see all the three options for tipping. 20% used to be the high end, 18% was okay service, and 15% was just, your baseline. But now they want 25%, which, damn. So the total here was $69. After it was all said and done, $93. You don't see that in Europe, guys.
I mean, that's a $15 tip. Imagine getting 2, 3, 4 of those in just 1 hour. And the other important thing that he mentioned is that 18% used to be on the high end. And on top of that, it almost feels like a requirement whether or not the service was good. Because before, it almost seemed like tipping was voluntary if the waiter or waitress did a really bad job. But sometimes it seems like waitresses, they take advantage of it and they don't even show up at the table until 30 minutes after you sat down. The food comes out later and you never see them again. Your drinks have been empty and they still are going to basically require you to leave them an 18 to 25% tip. And it's crazy that, 18 used to be on the high side. I remember 15% being the norm. Now, all over the internet, people have been sharing silly skits where their boyfriend opens the door for them and then he pulls out a cell phone asking for a tip. And it just kind of shows how awkward it has become when people are expecting tips for things that we would have never tipped them for before. Like, for example, somebody going to a kiosk, finding their own food, and then they're expected to leave a tip.
I'm literally at the airport at the self-checkout machine buying a water. Self-checkout. Who is this even going to? I'm again at self-checkout.
Okay, so I literally went to a Red Robin's recently, and they had an actual robot come to our table and sing the happy birthday. And these robots also make it so that you can put your plates on the robot when you're done with your meal, and it'll wheel it away. And so maybe that is something that can help with this out of control tipping culture. I would love to know what you guys think about this. So here we have a guy who is literally being forced to tip. They gave him a 15% option, which has become unusual. But when he clicks no tip, it literally doesn't even let him exit out of the page. I don't know how many of you guys have been affected by the influx of illegal immigration. It's just near the places where I have been in my state, I have found that some Venezuelans try to come and clean your window, even if you don't want it at all. And some people have began to recognize, and I recognized this prior to seeing these migrants here in Colorado because I was living in Latin America, and they would try to force you to have your windows cleaned. And if you would tell them no, this was always like the typical hand signal. It's like, like we don't want it. Sometimes they would hit your window. Sometimes they would clean it anyway, and then maybe expect a tip later on or something like that. And so just because tipping is not obligatory in our country, it is definitely heavily required, because similarly, Americans are getting very angry if they don't get tipped, even though it's something that's supposed to be voluntary, like having your window washed. But apparently people want a tip, and a big tip, no matter what, even if you're not happy with their service. So here we have an angry driver upset over a no tip.
What are you doing?
If you're not tipping, I'm not. This is it.
Are you serious?
Yes. No. This is $400 worth of product here.
Okay, why does that matter?
Because you have to pay taxes on these services.
Oh
and
my God.
And I'm not paying your guys. If you're not going to tip, then you know what I mean.
Look, if you're broke, just say it.
Yeah, just say that you're
It's
broke.
no problem. You guys.
I really hope that this is fake. That's the thing I always think when I see videos. I'm just like, please be fake, please. Now, I do think that it is really important to add that if you have the funds to be able to give back, it makes you feel good. And I remember, again, working as a waitress and somebody tipping me like $40, $50, and it was just the best day. And I was just so happy about it. So, I mean, you can definitely make somebody's day. However, it's not a requirement. Here we have an angry woman fired up after receiving a bad tip.
Order.
I'm mad, yes, because I am a hard worker, dedicated worker. I've been doing the service industry for 10 years. It's what I love to do.
A local church ordered $735 worth of food that she had to prepare.
25 steaks, 25 potatoes, 25 chickens.
When people from the church came to pick up the food, Tamlin loaded all the entrees into the car. Then church members left her high and dry with no tip.
I was angry, because it's such a large order and we have to take so much out of our time. It took almost an hour to put everything together.
The church quickly became aware of the situation and called the restaurant to make things right. The next day, when Tamlin showed up for work, she got a pink slip.
Wait, why did she get fired? I think we're missing something. Seeing videos like this one right now of this waitress very mad at this guy, I think that it has become almost like people are not mad about giving the tip. They're more angry about the waiters and waitresses not really working for it or just expecting it and not really going above and beyond. They just do the bare minimum and they expect to get a really high tip. And I think that is why a lot of people are angry about this whole thing. So something that I learned about money recently is to be grateful even when it comes in small amounts. Because if you're ungrateful for the money that you're receiving, then how are you going to receive more money? It's like when you begin a YouTube channel or you begin a business, you might start making just a little bit of money at first. But if you can be grateful for that and lean into that, then you're definitely going to see more of it. It's like the more that you can be grateful for, the more that you have to be grateful for. But yet here we have a woman who is very angry about an $8 tip, which isn't an $8 tip okay?
An $8 tip. What the hell are you looking for? You gave an $8. Okay, I'm gonna bring the food back.
I mean, it literally just reminds me of like when in some parts of Latin America, if you park on a literal public street, there will be people who come around who watch your car for you, but basically they just want you to pay them to not rob you. That's like, pay me, give me money, or else I'm going to be really angry and I'm going to start hitting your door. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this.
Bring the food back. Okay.
You can leave it, thank you.
No, I could speak to you actually.
I mean, you're just wasting time at this point. And for many of these people, I mean, it's interesting because For some people, time is money. But when you do work as a waiter or waitress, if you provide really good service, you can make more money in the time technically. And I guess you do learn good skills from working in the service industry because you learn how to please people and greet them, and you become personable and able to talk with everybody, right? And so it is a skill that can help you make more money in less time. But then again, I mean, there's some people, I mean, it doesn't matter if you have done something for 20 years, if you haven't improved over the 20 years. And so here we have this guy who is just so angry about not getting tipped enough for a $20 pie.
Hello.
Come here, Max. Max.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just want to say it's a nice house for a $5
Oh, wow, that was so sassy. It was so unnecessary. So in the US, it's actually considered a good tip of 15%. Please make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.